All right, Sandy, welcome to the Beyond the Tools podcast.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Obviously, we are just coming off of the CMPX event, at least at the time of recording. And I know the show was so exciting and so much going on. So you must feel a bit of relief now having had all that hard work pay off.
Yeah, I think it's both relief and definitely a little bit of pride. The show was amazing. We ended up with more floor space than we've ever had in the past, more exhibitors than we've ever had in the past. We had a waiting list even beyond that, which was encouraging when you start thinking about the future. We had attendance that was 15% above what we had in 2024, which was amazing. All the pieces really played out well. Financially, the show should perform well. We'll, lots of bills to pay yet and get all that stuff organized. But the macro outlook right now on every metric is just incredibly favorable. And we just sent out on Monday, we sent out the surveys to the exhibitors, the sponsors, and the attendees. So we'll get some good feedback as well from people that were there. I've had all kinds of calls and emails and lots of online comments about the event and the show. So everything really looks like it was very successful. Very few issues. Um, Shout outs to my team here, to the Newcom team. These things, CIPH was a great partner. These things don't just happen. They're not something that you kind of snap your finger and it all falls into place. I'm very, very pleased and proud of the way everything played out.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Reflective Marketing's first time at the show, and we had a booth there. And yeah, I was just floored by not only, I guess, the number of attendees, but also the quality. I mean, we spoke to so many different contractors, and what I thought was really cool is there were definitely a lot of people that were there for the first time, but so many who are like, "Oh, I come to this show every single year. Like it's so important for me to be here." So
Right, right.
I thought that was awesome to hear.
No, it was it really was a great show, and I was again, so much work goes into this stuff in the weeks and months before. I was on the show floor the day before the show opened on the Tuesday, and at that point, the floor's it's busy and there's activity and people are putting the booths up and it's a really happening space. But you kind of realize at that point there's literally nothing you can do to make this thing better or worse. It's going to happen tomorrow. It was interesting when I was on the floor early. I was already thinking about how do you make 2028 better,
Mm.
because 2026 is going to flow the way it's going to flow. It'll be what it'll be. How do we make this thing, different and better for 2028? So, already talking about those types of issues. I had a conversation with a couple of board members about, how do we expand, and already thinking, about what the future looks like.
Exciting. And I think that's the perfect segue into what we're talking about today is what are some of the really big challenges that contractors are facing now and what's coming in the future. So I'm really excited to dive into that. And Sandy, I think what's unique for you is really you get to see the industry at a national level. So I'm curious what's something that you're seeing right now or what things are top of mind that maybe your average HVAC contractor on the ground isn't fully aware of yet.
So one of the unique things about HRAI is that we're the only organization that is kind of, I'd say, formally structured to be able to deal with issues of wholesalers, manufacturers, and contractors. So there's other organizations that are regional. There's other organizations that maybe have a focus on specifically on contractors. But our governance is set up in a way that I've got a contractor board, a wholesaler board, manufacturing board, and we're legally structured around those three groups. So we really have the opportunity to be able to talk to government at all levels, whether it's an issue around a trade issue in a particular province, or something that might be a Transport Canada issue that impacts all provinces. So we can have these conversations with the feds. We can have these conversations provincially. And even more so these days, we're starting to have municipal conversations as some of the municipalities are starting to set their own climate goals and such. So it really is a unique perspective that we have. And when you think about to your question about maybe some stuff that happens behind the scenes that contractors don't know about, I'll use the refrigerant transition as one. And what was really interesting with the refrigerant transition over the past 24 months or so is that Canada has been meeting its Kigali phase down requirements. So the amount of refrigerants and such that we're kind of bringing into the country have been meeting the phase down requirements for several years. So there's no panic button in Ottawa with Environment Climate Change Canada. That was not true in the US. So in the United States, they weren't meeting their requirements, and the AIM Act was put in place at the end of 2024. And what it did is it forced a change in the refrigerant used in equipment. So we'd been harmonized with the US for quite some time. Our expectation is to try and be harmonized with the US whenever possible. And all of a sudden, you've got these regulatory changes happening in the US. They got a hard deadline at the end of the year. You've got most of the major manufacturers that our contractors rely on. And those are the Trains and the Lennox and the Daikin's of the world. So, kind of all the people that you kind of know, they're pretty much household names. And they're being forced by this AIM Act change to adjust the refrigerants that they're using in their equipment to sell in the United States. So Canada is always 10% of the U.S. market. So it's difficult, often for us to dictate what, the Canadian market will be, try and align with the big guys to make sure you got, product supply and that the supply chains function effectively. What that meant, though, is we had an early conversation with Environment and Climate Change Canada, probably in January of 2024. And it was kind of an interesting start to the journey when they basically said, oh, yeah, we're well aware of this, and there's no problems from an Environment and Climate Change Canada perspective of bringing in the A2L charged equipment. So that would be like an R32, as an example, 454B. Yeah, sure, you can ship them into the country, no issue. And then I asked the next question, which was, well, can you transport those units once they arrive at the Port of Vancouver? Well, that's a Transport Canada discussion, so we don't know. We're not able to answer that question. Turns out you can. So you can ship the equipment into the country. But it's going to stay where you ship it. It comes in on a rail line. It's going to be in a boxcar. It's going to cross the border. It's going to sit in Winnipeg, ship in Halifax, Montreal, Vancouver, wherever that might be. And then the story got worse in that. Okay, well, will the building codes allow us? Will allow contractors in Canada to install this new equipment? Same answer. That's a provincial issue, so we don't know. So Environment and Climate Change Canada isn't able to give you an answer on that. So started doing some digging on that, and you find out that nope, no, you can't install them. So you can ship them to the country, can't move them, can't install them. So I think we got a problem. And Chris Han, who was our chair at the time, Chris is with Wolseley. He made a statement at one point in one of our meetings that has resonated with me. And the statement was, thank God for HRAI, because I don't know who else would do this.
Yeah.
Kind of back to the point of who set up to actually tackle this. So we got active with the National Research Council. They kind of oversee the National Building Code. They were able to work with us to be able to connect with the deputy ministers in each of the provinces. And it literally was province by province. My first meeting that I had on this issue was in Halifax. Just I happened to be there for another reason, and then literally I had to meet with the different ministries in each of the provinces to see this thing through. And we literally at the 11th hour, so the end of 2024, with these changes coming into place in January 1st, 2025, we got clearance in every province that they could ship and they could install. But that's one of those things the average contractor wouldn't really know was happening.
Yeah.
But if you were, a customer of one of the manufacturers that's shifting from 410A to R32, for instance, you were going to have a product problem if this didn't get solved.
Mm.
So it was a very, very active year. Pleased to say we got it done. And now we're living in Canada. We've got actually both A1s and A2L, so they're both active in the file in Canada. That work will carry on into 26, maybe even into 27, with an expectation that A1s will probably be phased out. Hoping, actually expect to hear something from Environment and Climate Change Canada on the OHR file this month. They're saying they'll have some information for us in April.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of very tedious, confusing work to be able to get that accomplished.
It was definitely, you had to be tenacious on these issues, but very pleased with our progress and the team we had working on it, and we kind of all we kind of took a divide and conquer approach to some of this stuff, and different people focused on different provinces, and eventually we did we wrapped it all up with a nice bow. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's kind of an interesting perspective as well, just in terms of the regional differences and, how you navigate different provinces. So, how do you see some of those regional differences across the provinces create friction for contractors who are trying to grow or navigate those different compliance issues
so
and
the
differences
the
between them?
vast majority of the contractors in this country are not cross provincial. So there are some, and we've got a few members that do operate in. I've got one particular one comes to mind. He operates in Atlantic Canada, here in Ontario, and he's just expanded to British Columbia. We sometimes have some conversations that are like, can't we get some of this stuff standardized, and why is it so different in the different provinces? And sometimes those conversations require us to open up a bottle of scotch to start really working through the details of how do you get some of this stuff harmonized across the provinces. But you even hear Mark Carney talks about interprovincial barriers from a trade perspective. So unfortunately, these things have been kind of in play for a long, long time. And if you go back to when heating was first required in this country, it was a potbelly stove or a fireplace that ended up with falling within provincial regulations. And there weren't global suppliers, and there weren't multiple options. It was something that ended up kind of that whole thing around fire codes and building codes and that kind of stuff all ended up at the provincial level, and that evolved over decades. And so that's the patchwork that we're kind of now dealing with. And then on top of that, in in our role here at HRAI, the climate file is very interesting in that it's provincial. So, when I am dealing with different issues in different areas, the conversation I'm going to have around products and incentives and that type of thing on different types of products is going to be very different in New Brunswick than it's going to be in Ontario, than it's going to be in Alberta, than it's going to be in BC. And HRAI, from a manufacturing standpoint, we represent people that are still building gas boilers, and people that are building chillers, people that are building heat pumps, and then the contractors that are installing all of those things.
Hmm.
We have to be pretty flexible from an association standpoint, that you can't say this one's good, that one's bad, you should do this one. We really fundamentally believe that the local government in whatever province it's in needs to set the direction. We're happy to be at the table to talk about what that direction should be. But if Nova Scotia is going to put incentives in place for heat pumps and Alberta's not, we don't lobby that one's right and one's wrong. So then the conversation is making sure the supply chain in Alberta works, and that they've got the right supply of equipment, and same thing for PEI or any other jurisdiction in the country. It's interesting when I know you're based in Newfoundland. When I was at the CMPX show, I had great opportunity to speak to people from all over the country, and as you know, I'm also from Atlantic Canada. I grew up in Nova Scotia. So it was interesting talking to some contractors that were saying, particularly in Newfoundland, how for most of their lives and most of mine, there wasn't even a need for air conditioning in
Yeah.
Newfoundland and most parts of Nova Scotia. There just wasn't. Maybe you had 2 days a year where it was hot. Well, after you open the window and you sit in the porch. But that's changing, right? So that definitely makes mini splits, heat pumps, that type of stuff so much more interesting in the business in some of those regions. The same thing is even true in Vancouver. Vancouver has never really seen the types of temperatures that they're seeing in the last 5 years. I lived in BC for a number of years. A warm day in Vancouver in the summer used to be 22, 23 degrees. And they had that crazy heat bomb a couple of years ago where they were getting 40.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, realizing that the need for HVAC equipment and air conditioning puts a lot of strain on the contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's funny, here anecdotally, of course, exactly what you said. Now I can't imagine not having air conditioning, but yeah, no one had air conditioning.
When you
And
grew up, there was no air
yeah,
conditioning in your
no.
house. Like that just wasn't even like, I don't even know if I had any friends. Like maybe one rich friend that lived across the river might have had an air conditioner in the house, but just nobody did. It was just unheard of, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and you kind of talked about that a little bit there, we've seen this explosion in terms of rebate programs and how that's affected not only homeowners adopting things like heat pumps and mini splits and getting AC in Atlantic Canada, but also how that has had both a positive effect and a really detrimental effect on residential HVAC businesses. So I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about how HRAI is involved with government rebates and incentives, or how much influence you can have there when a lot of contractors share concerns about when there are rebate programs, and also when those go away and how that affects their market and the slowdown of things.
Complex topic for sure. And we have seen some programs that are national. So Greener Homes would be a national program. Then we've got provincial programs that are run not in every province, but many have provincial programs. And then I'm going to go back to what I said earlier as well. You've even got some municipalities that have layer on programs. So we have just written a document, and it's the principles of good incentive programs. So what we're trying to do is educate politicians at all these levels in all the provinces on, if you are going to design a program, what are some of the factors that you need to be thinking about. And it's broad. Some of the basics, is, has the product or the program been designed in such a way that we've thought about the availability of product. I had a really interesting one, and the city can remain nameless, but I had a city reach out to us, said, hey, we're going to be running this new incentive program. This particular one was on a gas furnace. It was going to be, we're going to incentivize the 97% gas furnace. The standard in that market at that time was 96, this a couple of years ago. So it's an improvement of 1%. So we listened, had a conversation, got the specs of the program, and I said to the municipality that, okay, before we give you our opinion, advice, endorsement on this, let me just do a little bit of work. So the first thing that I found out after making a few calls is that there was not a single unit of that particular product available for sale in the province, not just the municipality, but they didn't have them because nobody buys them. Like if you get a 96% efficient furnace and you can buy it for $4,000 and the 97% furnace is $7,000, why would I buy something that much more expensive for such a minuscule lift in efficiency? So there was no product available. So that was the first kind of thing. And then, of course, I have the conversation with the wholesaler network. Well, if you're going to get this product in, what's the lag on that? In that particular case, they thought 6 months if they could even get it. So, but 3 months in a perfect world if there's some sitting somewhere. 6 months if they have to be built. And of course, this municipality was looking at launching that program within about 30 days of the conversation. So you would think something as simple as thinking about the availability of the product before you put it on sale. Imagine if you had your local grocery store put a big sign out that they're going to put chocolate milk on sale for 99 cents. And there's no chocolate milk available in Newfoundland. None. Like there's none anywhere in the province. And that's essentially what they did.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What do you do with that?
Well, I mean, they launched the program. It was mostly, I'll go to the second issue. The program was mostly a political announcement. So, it was basically an opportunity for the mayor of that municipality to, kind of get up in front of some people, make an announcement. He's doing great things for the environment, and we're going to put this new incentive program in place. But it was never really meant to work. It was a political statement. So that's kind of point two on that same journey. We often see incentive programs launched. I can even think of one at the national level that was really a political announcement that was timed before, about 6 weeks before an election, and it was just one of those things that you're kind of stacking up a solid environmental issue, and you want to be able to kind of talk about what you've done. So you use these incentives politically rather than practically. So that's another kind of issue that can be a bit of a challenge. Not engaging industry early is another one that we've talked to politicians at all levels and their administrative offices, like the Environment and Climate Change Canada, the World Natural Resources Canada, bring associations like HRAI to the table early, so that when you're designing these things, we can help you understand some of the challenges that the contractors are going to have in the field uh, with the administration of these different programs. Whenever possible, also have the ability for these incentives to be put in place by the contractor at the time of installation. So some programs require an energy audit in advance. That
Mm.
that sounds good in that you're ensuring that the energy audit is making sure that the product's being put in is the right product, it's sized properly, etc. Um, the challenge with that though is just think of a cold winter's day in Newfoundland in January, and you wake up and you got no heat, and you get a hold of your local contractor, and you're aware of an incentive, the national incentive that you've heard of, and the contractor comes in and says, "Yep, you got no heat, so got to get you fixed." So, yep, I need heat. So you have the conversation, and he or she sets you up with the product that you should get, and you say, "Hey, well, what about that thing, that incentive thing that I heard about that's out there? I'd like to take advantage of that." And then your contractor says, "Well, I'd have to get you set up with an energy auditor, and they'll have to come to your house and do an energy audit and figure out if you actually, qualify." And then your obvious answer is going to be, "Well, can they come today?" And it's, "No, they're about 2 months backed up. It's January. I can have them in here at the end of March. And meanwhile, you better go live with your in-laws because you're not going to have any heat in your house." So it's just even issues like that
Yeah.
that are not thought through practically. I had a conversation with one large contractor in Canada, and he says 80% of his business is no heat, no cool. So that
Mm.
means most people don't sit around the kitchen table on a Friday night when you're having a cocktail and enjoying the evening, a glass of wine, and say, "You know what? I think we should get a new furnace. The old one's good, but it's time. We should replace it." Um, the only people really making those types of decisions are people that are really passionate about the environment, and that's a good thing. No criticism on that. But more importantly, I think those people often are wealthy. So
Mm.
so now all of a sudden you're giving incentives to people that don't really need the incentives. So those are
Yeah.
the people that probably would do the right thing anyway. They do have that conversation on the Friday night with the glass of wine and the beer, and they're not talking really about replacing the furnace. They're talking about retooling their house, want a greener home, they want it tighter, they want to do the right thing for the environment. Um, Throwing incentives at those folks probably isn't the right place for government to be spending their money.
Mm.
So those are some of the issues that we've built into this document that we've produced around the principles of a good design program, or well-designed program, and we're shopping that now around right across the country, and we are definitely getting some traction. And then one of the other, last one I'll leave on that one, and this is a little bit controversial for contractors, but I'll bring it up anyway, and that is the issue of ensuring at the provincial level that if you are going to install equipment, and I'll use heat pumps as the example, that you're licensed to do so.
Yes.
There's a lot of illegal installations that are happening where people are installing this equipment, they're getting the incentive, the equipment isn't installed properly because the person doing it doesn't have the qualifications they should. And if you don't install a heat pump effectively, you lose up to 40% of the efficiency, and you also cut the life of the program, or the product. So, a heat pump that maybe should last 12 years only lasts 4 because it burns out because it hasn't been installed properly. So,
Mm.
so all kinds of kind of elements around incentive programs that keep us busy. We work on them diligently. We're involved in literally every province on these issues. I have an expectation that this document that we produced will get some traction. Matter of fact, it's already getting traction because it's one of those motherhood issues that you know the people responsible for these programs can't read this thing and say, well, that's not right. And everything I just said makes complete sense. And if you follow these steps, you'll have a more successful program.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And yeah, like you said, you think some of these things would be obvious, but clearly not. So I think it's so important that HRAI can step forward and bring recommendations based on what your contractors, manufacturers, wholesalers are experiencing every day so that
Absolutely.
it does end up being a successful program and achieve the goals that the government is hoping for.
Right. Absolutely.
So, Sandy, I think on the workforce and licensing issue, that is also something that's obviously very top of mind. And I know that finding skilled workers always a challenge. Tell me a little bit about the gap analysis project that HRAI has been doing to identify unlicensed or underqualified installs.
So the first thing when you talk about workforce, I don't know how much of your audience may be people thinking about getting into the trades, but I probably would start with a plug for the trades. You know, this industry is remarkable, uh, and I was new to HVAC when I came into this role, and one of the things that I found pretty fascinating about the space is that it truly is an essential service. And when COVID hit, we were one of the first industries that were deemed essential in Canada. Because who's going to argue that you don't need heat and cooling in when you live in the Canadian climate, no matter where you live, no matter what province you're in? So, um, when young people are looking for certainty in a career, um, I think the HVAC space is a pretty amazing spot in Canada to be involved with. Uh, a full uh, refrigeration tech with the full trade in most provinces in this country easily earns six figures. So, anyone who's also thinking, well, the trades don't pay, that's not true. People can do very well in the trades. And, so good wage, good longevity, interesting work. The technology is evolving all the time. So you've got, people who are interested in technology are working on interesting equipment. So, just a plug right up front, if you're, looking for, you're 18 years old, 19 years old, thinking about what do you want to do, this can be a pretty amazing space to be. And that's true in every province in this country. And I would,
Absolutely.
I would definitely recommend it. What we do have happening in Canada is a shortage of tradespeople, and that's true just about everywhere. So, if you're a mason laying bricks, there's shortages there: electricians, plumbers, HVAC techs, refrigeration techs. So there's definitely an opportunity in any of the trades, and I think there's skilled trades sessions all over the country, and I encourage people to get out and kick the tires on the various opportunities. Um, so then you kind of look at this change in technology that's facing our industry, and that's where when you talk about the gap analysis, we find we've got people who have been working in the sector for some time, and this differs by province. So this is another one of these ones that I wish there was one solution that we could develop and we could apply it across 10 provinces. That isn't the case. It's unique in each area, and we have to kind of tackle this regionally. So in Ontario, this is the first place that we did the gap analysis. We're now doing it. We're actively doing it now in Atlantic, and then we're going. Once that's done, we're going to do it in BC. So back to where we started, we're truly national. We look at things that can be done coast to coast, and then fill in the blanks in the other spots. But we started in Ontario, and we were able to get a large enough sample size of technicians that are working in the space that have predominantly been working on fossil fuels, so gas furnaces, boilers, etc. And now all of a sudden there is this new, it's not new, heat pumps have been around forever, but there's been a new push on heat pumps. And then something like greener homes push that further. And we've got other provincial incentives here. So the feeling was that there's people doing heat pump installations that maybe aren't quite qualified. So it's not like they haven't worked on equipment before, and a lot of people who have good mechanical abilities. My mechanical abilities are pretty much using my mechanical pencil. So I'm
I'm
not
with you.
that guy. I happily hire a technician when I need work to be done. But you got a lot of people that are mechanically inclined, and they have been installing gas furnaces, and they feel that they can move over easily and install a heat pump. Well, the reality is it is different technology, and you need some training to take you from point A to point B. So the work that we've done is starting to get to the point of how big a gap is that, and of course the gap's going to be different for the individuals, how long they've been on the job, what type of equipment they were working on before, what type of equipment they're working on now, whether they've been able to be side by side with a qualified person. That matters a lot. If you and I work together, and you're a qualified technician and you've got all your papers, my ability, even if I only have a gas license, for instance, my ability of learning what you do is a heck of a lot better if we're side by side for a period of time than if I'm just at a job trying to figure out with a manual or maybe some help on the phone. So we did this work. We created a test module for people to do, and we did identify a gap. So there was definitely some knowledge gaps that were in place. And then what we did is we got a group of industry professionals together, both instructors as well as technicians, and we created a training course that is meant to address that gap. So we now know what the gap is. We addressed the training course. We did that with government money. We had a grant from Environment Climate Change Canada and Natural Resources Canada, and we were able to create this course. And then we ran a sample size through that course to see if we could make up the gap, and then we tested them again on the back end. And the reality is the testing on the back end showed that we did lift the skill levels across like almost every module that was in play. We lifted the skill model or the skill level of the people who went through it. So we finished that. Money was done, project was done, and we then had another conversation with Natural Resources Canada. How do you want to apply this learning? So we had another conversation with them, and that's when they just said, let's try this in a couple of other regions. So what you found out in Ontario, is that going to be true in Atlantic? Is it going to be true in British
Mm.
Columbia? So we broke it into two more segments, which is really all from a resource standpoint that we can handle. Like we hired up, but it's not easy to hire up at 4x or 5x. You can hire up at 2x maybe, and make these things work, which we did. And as I say, we've launched the Nova Scotia, Atlantic region. The other thing that they gave us some funding for was to improve the training module. So we built it the first time, but when you build something the first time through, we probably got it 80% right, 75% right. But it wasn't perfect. So they've given us some additional funding to fix that training. And we will we'll finish that update of that training probably late April, early May. And it will be available in several community colleges in Ontario in the fall. mostly designed for people that are in the apprenticeship program now for refrigeration, or people who already have their 313D license, which is unique to Ontario and Manitoba, but haven't necessarily been actively working in that space. So it's a refresher for those people. And whether we develop training programs for people that might be further down on the skill level that we want to kind of move up, that might be a different tier of training. So that's essentially what we've done, and pretty proud of the work. But it's a journey. Like this is not a, like we've been at this for probably 24 months already.
Mm,
I bet it's 5 years before you see any, reasonable movement in volume. And it's definitely, what's the old saying? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So
yes. No, that makes sense. So, yeah, just so I'm clear on that as well. Obviously, this isn't replacing licensing, and it's not like this is to police people, but more so, yeah, giving those refreshers for people that are a little rusty or that are going through that apprenticeship program to make sure that they are where they need to be when they come out.
yeah. And, look, I think there will be lots of other conversations around what exactly, how many hours it takes to kind of make that gap up. And that will differ by region. So every province has different guidelines and structures on what licenses are required to do what work. So, this, like Newfoundland is very different than Nova Scotia. So the solution in Newfoundland will be different than the solution in Nova Scotia, and that just will be the reality of how this will play out. And it'll take a while. There's a lot of stakeholders. There's 10 provinces, which I keep going back to. And the other thing that, and we all know this, but you sometimes forget the size of this country. So, you think it's easy to do something in Nova Scotia. And as a matter of fact, one of my abbeys this week is in BC for a function, and then I think he ends up in New Brunswick like Sunday. So that's a hike. It's
Yeah.
it's not like he's hopping in the car and he's there in an hour.
So true.
So that's hard on people. I flew 100,000 miles last year, and it sounds glamorous, but trust me, it's not. So
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, the whole HRAI team is doing so much to help contractors in the industry across the
and
country to
it, and it
succeed.
and it's great work.
I love that. So, Sandy, obviously, we've covered a number of really big challenges, big projects here that HRAI is working on behalf of the industry. What's something that you're excited about that's coming up next that everyone in the industry should be aware about?
So, I think one of the amazing things about HRAI is that the opportunities for us to touch various things are immense. And I'm really pleased to say in the last 5 years or so, we have doubled our revenue. And for that, for a nonprofit, is pretty amazing. And it's come from new training modules that we put in place, something like the heat pump symposium that we held in Halifax in the fall, CMPX. Membership is up literally in every province across the country. And what the incremental dollars do is, I don't have an owner that wants a new boat. We're able to put. I report to a board, and I'm able to ensure that we've got government resources in all provinces to be able to deal with the issues that you're talking about. And that's the kind of stuff that kind of gets you out of bed in the morning. That it's exciting work. We're dealing with exciting issues. The climate file is fascinating. But it's a bit of a roller coaster, during the Trudeau years, we were on a certain path, and now all of a sudden we're kind of on a different path, and we had a carbon tax, and now we don't have a carbon tax. A little bit of certainty on some of these things would be nice. But 18 months ago, the Trump factor wasn't quite as much at play as it is today. So I think the answer to your question, it's never boring. I think that's definitely one of the things that keeps us all on our toes here at HRAI.
Well said, I think. So, Sandy, for anyone listening that wants to learn more about HREI, maybe they're not involved, or maybe they are a member but really aren't informed on what HREI offers, what's the best way that they can learn?
The very first thing that I always point people to is our newsletter. We've got a newsletter that's released every Thursday. We've got an open rate over 50%, which is industry leading, like from an association perspective. So clearly we're hitting the right kind of key points for people. There you'll see what training we have available. We've got a heat pump symposium coming up in Vancouver in May. We'd say we just came off CMPX. We'll have our annual general meeting is happening in September just in Gatineau outside of Ottawa. So there's events for people to get involved in. There's training for people to get involved with. Join your local chapter. We've got 17 chapters coast to coast. Good opportunity for you to meet your peers. Go on the website. Go to contact us. The newsletter information is there. Sign up. You don't have to be a member. We want everybody in. Although if you do sign up and give us your information, we will be calling you for a membership. So there is a sale there. I won't deny that, but the content's free.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sandy. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your
I'm thrilled to be
deep
here.
insights.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. And I'm sure we'll hear more from you soon. We'll put all those links in the show notes as well. And again, Sandy, really
Perfect.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. You have a great day.